40 million. That's the amount of people in the US with an anxiety disorder. 40 million. The amount of people dealing with an enhanced amount of anxiety. Sadly, majority of these people do not seek help for this anxiety. This is due to many reasons. It could be due to financial reasons, cultural reasons, time-based, whether they're too busy, or lack of knowledge, and most of all, fear. So I had a question. I was wondering, how can we find an alternative way to treat anxiety for more general population so that people aren't fearful of getting help? And that brought me to the question, could we use film? Could we use film to treat anxiety? So, one thing that I studied was cinematic therapy. This was popularized by Dr. Gary Sullivan, and essentially it's the process of assigning films to be watched, and with themes of anxiety, and then discussing them with the people and how they affected this person with their specific story. It uses themes to start a conversation rather than drive. So when you think about anxiety, you're mainly thinking about those ideas of those big questions that bring you straight to the answer. But cinematic therapy, its main goal is to drive someone through a starting point of film, but then bring those to the same points, which makes you less fearful because you're not being pondered and bashed with those crazy and intense questions. So, I gave a list of 5 films to a couple people so they could watch and we could use our own way of cinematic therapy. I gave the list of Beautiful Mind, Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Good Will Hunting, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But we were mainly focused on A Beautiful Mind, Perks of Being a Wallflower, and Good Will Hunting. So I tested 2 people, and I'm going to keep them anonymous for the safety of them. They were both juniors at this school, and I gave them a few weeks to watch each film as much as they could, and then we had a session which was about 20 minutes long. So the first person I tested, they watched Good Will Hunting, A Beautiful Mind, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and Perks of Being a Wallflower. So first we talked about A Beautiful Mind. And a main issue in that, though it's schizophrenia, it focuses on social anxiety because a lot of the symptoms of schizophrenia are mainly focused with social anxiety. And it showed how detrimental it could be if you cut yourself off, such as Russell Crowe's character in that film. And it also was a good representation of isolation and how being so cut off from the world and in your own mind can hurt you in a larger sense with other people. So we started on this topic, and then we went on to further topics such as why they think they were helped and are hindered by social anxiety, and how watching this film and seeing these themes helped them process some of their ideas, which is the main idea of cinematic therapy. So when I asked them if they could rank the movie based off of how well it helped them with their anxiety, they gave it a 6 out of 10 because it helped them with a certain aspect of anxiety. The next film that we discussed was The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And one main theme in this film is holding yourself back. In the beginning of the film, Walter Mitty, the main character played by Ben Stiller, he is holding himself back based off of his anxiety and fear of branching out. But it shows how happy he can be after he leaves and explores the world. So we discussed how holding yourself back is a hindrance to furthering yourself, mentally and physically. It also gave them inspiration because it showed that there's a possibility that even though it's a film, they have an option to branch out more. So when I asked them to rank this one, they gave it a 7 out of 10 because it was more generalized anxiety that they were focusing on rather than just the simple social anxiety. So then the third movie we talked about was Good Will Hunting, which by far was the most effective one in regards to helping with anxiety through my studies. So a major theme in Good Will Hunting is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and a major side effect or symptom of that is holding yourself back because you're so fearful of what might happen if you let yourself go back through another issue like that. And showing this gave the person an opportunity to free themselves and allowed them to openly more talk about times that they held themselves back and times that they were away from society and they were holding themselves back for a reason because they were scared of what people might think. Another theme that Good Will Hunting discusses is generalized anxiety, and that's a main point of which we talked about in this session. And one major thing about generalized anxiety is keeping your feelings inside you and holding back because you're fearful that if you let go, you're going to get lost. So we talked about that because it allowed this person to be more open about what they went through, because generalized anxiety is the most common form of anxiety disorders, and therefore it is experienced by the most people inherently, and it gave them the opportunity to feel like they're not alone. Because with these themes in these films, it's showing that they're not the only ones dealing with these things. And also in Good Will Hunting, they discuss therapy and how, with Matt Damon's character Will and Rob Williams' character, how it sort of destigmatized the idea of therapy in the eyes of the masses, because with therapy, it's often perceived as very negative because it's seeing that you need help rather than you're getting help because you need it, because you want to, rather. So then I asked what they rated this one, and they gave it a 9 out of 10, which is the highest one I got out of all of it, including on my other test, which also gave a 9 out of 10, because it encompassed more than just one type of anxiety in it. Finally, we talked about perks of being a wallflower, which is the most important one that I picked for this subject, because it gave the idea of a team going through these issues. And both of my subjects, like I said, were teens. They're juniors in high school, so it's based in their ideas and their experiences. So a major theme that is in this one, again, is social anxiety and how all teens have the fear of fitting in. So then we talked about how they experienced being able to fit in through this film because it gave them a route that is not primarily just asking them, how did you not fit in high school? So another main feeling in Perks of Being a Wallflower is at the end of the film, the main character goes into hospitalization because he attempts suicide. And they handle this really nicely because it's not demonized. And I talked to the first subject because they had dealt with hospitalization in the past, and they realized that it helped them rather than hindered them. So, this next session, they only watched 2 of the 5 movies, which were Perks of Being a Wallflower and Good Will Hunting, which we've discussed before this. So one main issue that we discussed in my second session was the theme of hiding your true self in Good Will Hunting. Because
Kaylin Reese or Sarah Knutson, if you're in the building, please come to the office. Kaylin Reese and Sarah Knutson, please come to the office.
Because when Matt Damon is with his friends in the film, you see that he's hiding himself, and you see how detrimental it is to him because he's holding so much back from the world, and he needs to let it out, which is why it was so successful for him finding a romantic relationship as well as that therapeutic relationship. And one really interesting thing that I found was with this session, they related it directly to themselves without even having myself ask them whether it related to them. Because right as we started talking about that, they brought in a personal story about how when they're with their friends, they're not completely themselves because they're fearful that they will be judged for what they are. And like I said, with the last one, with Good Will Hunting, it shows a very nice theme of therapy, because therapy is not intended, primarily not intended to be a negative site for people, but rather a helpful and useful tool. And again, like I said, they gave a 9 out of 10 to help with anxiety for this movie, because it encompasses so many different ways and shows how good it is to get help with your anxiety. And then finally, the movie that they watched was Perks of Being a Wallflower. We discussed that one last, because again, with the teen experience, and the idea of being lost until they're found. Because one thing that a lot of people with anxiety deal with is being stuck with this idea of loneliness and isolation, because they fear that if they let someone else into their life, then it will hurt them. But with this, it shows a good sense of how letting people into your life is not a bad thing, but rather something that will help you in the long run. And they gave this an 8 out of 10 in regards to helping with their anxiety. So you might ask, why would I test this? Why would I want to see how this would help someone? And the reason was because I believe that movies allow you to lead into a deeper conversation through analysis. Because that's really what it is. Movies, what we're doing here is just analyzing movies and relating it to yourself. So with the ability that movies have to lead you to a new...
Addie Rush to the office, please. Addie Rush.
Understanding of yourself as well as the media, it allows you to find a deeper connection with not only yourself, but the other person you're talking to. Also, it allows people to live through the characters rather than putting their heart on their sleeve, because a lot of people have struggles with that, because it forces them to to put themselves out there immediately rather than having a little buffer that helps with that fear aspect that I talked about earlier with the anxiety and going into therapy. As well as it just makes things less formal, because with anxiety, the stereotype is that you're in this room with 2 chairs and you're just talking about yourself rather than anything else, which is the main reason why anxiety has been so stigmatized in our media and our culture for years. And with adding this extra aspect of the film, it allows you to find a true understanding through not only just giving yourself, but also just relating to someone based off of something that you both like. And plus, it just uses a popular media form, so it allows you to reach each other more efficiently. So the reason why I'm interested in this topic is, A, I'm very passionate about film, and I think it could be helpful for many ways, but also because I deal with anxiety on a daily basis, and I was trying to find a way that I could reach a better way to understand myself through this. And so I believe this is helpful because it works for both the people. They said, my first subject said that it was helpful as other types of therapies in their experiences, while the other said they would like to continue doing cinematic therapy if they had the chance to. And plus, it's an easier way to start, because when you're, again, with the idea of generalized therapy and what we see therapy is in the public eye, it's very direct questions hitting right into your heart rather than getting a lead-in so you don't feel uncomfortable right away. As well as allows you to have fun while learning about yourself. So, the next time you watch a movie, think about what you can learn about yourself through someone else's work.